Okay, welcome everyone. Let's
Recording
call
in
to order
progress.
the September 24th, 2025 meeting of the Newton School Committee. We'll start tonight as we do every night with the Pledge of Allegiance. We once again do not have our fifth graders lined up yet, so filling in for a fifth grader this evening will be me again. So there is no obligation to participate, but for those who are willing and able, please rise for the pledge. Move the flag again. The pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's move to our public comment period for this evening. I believe we have one person in the room who has signed up. Lisa, is there anyone virtual? One person virtual. Okay. So let's start in the room with Manu Sarna. You have 3 minutes to make your public comment. At the 2.5 minute mark, Vice Chair Prenner will give you the 30-second warning. And if you could just please start by stating your name and address.
Of course. Manu Sarna, Raylan Road, Newton. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I have 2 children, one in kindergarten and one in first grade. And so this discussion, particularly around the proposed math curriculum, it matters to me. It matters to me because my children will bear this for the next few years of their education. I'm the 50%, the 50% that has their kids in things like Russian math, Mathnasium, now Singapore School of Math. And I think it's important for the school committee to ask themselves why. Why is it that 1 in 2 families today are putting their kids in more advanced math classes? Paul Schaefer, who has done some excellent work with Polymera, and I encourage all of you, I also encourage anyone who is listening at home to go through the report in detail around what is possible with a better math plan. I also commend Dr. Nolan for her willingness to listen and take feedback from parents. I think that has been a big improvement, and I think that will make a big difference as we listen to more and more parents about what they need and what they want. What's interesting is when you have a look at the plan that has been put forward, the plan from the school committee, it would really take us, when you look at it, from 16th out of 16th, when you benchmark Newton against different school districts, as you have probably read, Lexington, but also further afield across the US from Paul's report. It takes us just from 16 out of 16 to 14 out of 16. That is not sufficient. That is not what I think parents want or expect from this school district. I think if you look at Paul Schaefer's report and Polymera's report, the Math Pathways report, what you will see there is the chance to take us to number 1. A place where parents, both prospective and existing, feel proud to have their children in the school district, where they can get the treatment and the advancement that they need, and less of the Russian School of Math, Mathnasium, Singapore School of Math to supplement what they are looking for in that.
You have 30 seconds.
I think there is a real opportunity for this school committee and the future school committee to take this forward. I'm personally very excited about what we can do together. More investment will be needed, but I think with that investment, we will be able to serve parents, students much better in the future for the math that they deserve. Thank you to the school committee.
Thank you. Lisa, can you share who are virtual? Oh, Paul Sherman.
Shall I begin?
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm Paul Sherman. I live at 21 Gibson Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am here to comment on the draft mathematics plan being presented to you tonight. My name is Paul Sherman. I'm the primary author of the Independent Math Pathways report provided to the district and shared with the committee among tonight's materials. I am an expert in math course leveling and placement, and our organization funds both research and policy in this area. I first want to say that Anna and her team have been fantastic to work with. They're open to feedback, unafraid, and refreshingly transparent, and I'm pleased to see the progress they are making. However, I'm here to say this plan is not nearly ambitious enough in two key ways. One, there is not enough differentiation to meet all student needs. And two, it doesn't raise the ceiling high enough. Regarding differentiation, Newton currently offers a single mixed level pace of math through at least 10th grade, whereas 14 of 15 peer districts offer a range of pacing, most often starting by the 6th grade. The proposed plan doesn't significantly change this. Yes, starting in 8th grade, there are two levels of math contemplated, one being labeled accelerated. But look closer and you'll see that the two levels roughly cover the same material and end up in the same place 4 years later. This doesn't serve students who are struggling and need more time to review, nor does it serve students who need a faster pace. The second issue is that the ceiling is not high enough. We measured the ceiling by looking at the highest level of 8th grade math offered. We found Newton ranks dead last out of its peer group of 16 districts. Under the proposed plan, Newton would still rank 14 out of the 16 peer districts. What will this mean for Newton students? Newton's elementary students are scoring on average more than 2 grade levels ahead of national, with many top quartile students 3 or 4 grade levels ahead. What a great problem to have. But the proposed plan puts the highest 8th grade offering at 1 grade level ahead of national standards. So even under this new plan, not just a few, but huge numbers of students will not be challenged. Newton should offer geometry or its integrated math equivalent in 8th grade just as its peers do. In summary, Newton is at the back of the pack. So let's set goals that put Newton at the head of the pack, not goals that leave it near the back. If there are monetary constraints or constraints of inertia, then let's acknowledge them and create a plan to overcome them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude the public comment period for this evening. I should just remind everyone that while we do appreciate the comments and encourage comments from the public, this will not be the forum in which we will respond to them. Let's move to our consent agenda. We have a number of items on here. The meeting minutes from September 8th. We have a field trip approval memo, a request to transfer funds from the textile recycling program. We have a request for reimbursement for foster care transportation, a grant memo, and support organization donations for several schools. Is there anything a member would like to pull from the consent agenda for further discussion? Okay. Then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Rajiv?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, moved by Rajiv. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Paul. Let's take a vote on that. Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2 is yes. Ward 3 is absent. Ward 4 is
Yes.
online. Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6 is, oh, you're Ward 6, yes. Ward 6 is, yes. Ward 7 is absent. Ward 8 is in Worcester, and
Yes.
Mayor Fuller is yes. Okay, so that is, thank you. All right, consent agenda approved. Let's move to the superintendent's update.
The superintendent is foregoing her update because we have such a long agenda, but you're going to get a double dose next meeting.
Okay, there we go. Moving right along. Let's go to our discussion items for tonight. The first is a report and draft recommendations from the Long Range Planning Committee. And is Stephanie and Liam going to join us for this? Okay.
So while everyone gets settled, in case you're just joining for the first time, this is the Liam Hurley, CFO for Newton Public Schools, and Stephanie Gilman, Director of Planning, Project Management, and Sustainability, who together with Chris Bresky, Emily Prenner, Tamika Olszewski, and myself are the Long Range Planning Working Group, a working group for the superintendent. Ready?
Thank you, Dr. Nolan. Yes, good evening, everyone. So I'm very excited to be presenting a draft. This is a first draft, first read for the public and for the school committee to look at this. We have actually not published a document like this, to my knowledge, since about 2019. Part of that is we have so many projects going and have been going for many, many years. Thank you to the mayor and the citizens of Newton for moving so many projects. And we still have a number of projects happening right now through 2027. But this is a period in time in which we wanted a kind of a reflection point to think about what are the next projects for us to be contemplating. We put a draft timeline out to 2050. We know that there is still a lot of work to do in our school buildings.
I could just say,
Yes.
Mr. Hurley, there is online for any member of the public, the staggered plan for all the buildings through 2050 that Mr. Hurley mentioned. And it tells you, if you're interested, to look at each school when that school is ready for some attention.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
It's a big sheet of paper.
It's a big sheet of paper with a lot of color codes on that. And really what we've kind of put as the next four projects on this, really first is Ward and Underwood, which for those that don't know, those are our two oldest schools at approximately 100 years old. Building condition and accessibility as well as programmatic needs has been on this list for quite some time. So we think it's time to address that. After that, we actually have Brown Middle School, followed by Newton South, and the list goes on. I will say that this is a draft plan, and we've got timelines on here. These timelines are subject to change, and they're really, really subject to many variables, many of which are really outside my control and even the school committee's control, funding availability, timing of projects, really what's possible. But this is really the sequence of what we're suggesting at this point. And what I found here is that things can change over time. But this is the first initial draft. I'm looking for Stephanie to kind of to weigh on anything that I'm missing here. But I think that the pieces that are critical, in years past when we were putting this out, we were focused more so on enrollment and increasing enrollment and basically buildings with real severe overcrowding. We do not have that overcrowding. We've had declining enrollment for some time, but it's really now an issue of building condition and programmatic and meeting programmatic needs of our schools as kind of driving these. So we do not have a fully fledged worked out plan of what these buildings will look like when they're done. This is really, again, the draft of what we're proposing that needs to be addressed. So many of the questions that some of you may have may be addressed in feasibility, that feasibility process that we would go through. So this is just the very start. Members of the working group, also please comment on that.
So as Dr. Nolan mentioned, I was a part of this working group with Liam, Stephanie, Emily, and Tamika. There is a discrete decision point the committee will have to come to this year, which is to say, do we or do we not want to submit statements of interest to the Massachusetts School Buildings Association. And for those of you who are not aware, the MSBA is the state organization that provides funding for public school buildings. So currently, it's Countryside is a MSBA project. We've had a number of them in the past. They fund a significant portion of buildings. So the committee recommendation at this point was to say, we believe we should prioritize Ward and Underwood in that process to apply with SOIs to the MSBA. As part of that process, there is literally a box you check, literally and figuratively, a box you check that says, will you or will you not consider consolidation in this process? If the school committee agrees that we should put forth SOIs for Ward and Underwood, we will have to make a determination of, do we want to check that box? That is not a decision to consolidate or not consolidate. That is not a recommendation to consolidate or not consolidate. It is simply saying, are you willing to consider consolidation or not? Those are the two discrete decision points the school committee has to come to. And, we could further say, well, we think it's appropriate to have a recommendation to consolidate or not consolidate, but that's not necessary. Anything beyond that is really beyond what we're talking about right now, such as, if the school committee said, well, we should consider consolidation, the points of where or how that would happen are not part of this discussion. That's a multi-year process involving the MSBA to help to come to what are the optimal decisions to make as you go through the planning and feasibility process. So I think there's a couple things that are important to emphasize here. Our expectation is that there is, whatever the outcome of this process is, there is, and again, this is nothing more than our expectation, that there would be no new buildings until the 2033, 2034 timeframe. So we're talking about 8 years down the road or so till we get to the point where this whole thing comes to fruition. The reason we have to get started on this process now is it typically takes several years to get through the MSBA to get awarded a building contract. So we are now at the point where we have all of our existing projects in motion and, once again, are developing the capacity, simply put, to be able to re-engage in that process. And this is the very first step in what is a very long road.
I guess if I may,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Chair, just add, just for those who may not have been following this story previous to now, the school committee undertook 2 sets of building conditions and facility assessments over the last 2 years. And so there was no sort of favored building status that got people in the line in a certain way. It was based on that report in terms of how we made decisions to stagger the long-range plan on this. So my experience personally in working with the MSBA, it takes a few times to apply to get in the queue and to get accepted. So even if everything goes exactly the way we want it to go, as outlined on here, 2034 is the earliest that there would be a change to any enrollment patterns in the school system. So I say that because I'm speaking to you, Ward and Underwood parents, that you were told by the school committee that there would be no touching of anything for 5 years. That's still true. And indeed, the student experience may not change at all until 2034, unless there's a swing space need or something like that under this theoretical plan. Now, as the world, goes about its business between now and 2034, there may be some developments, but that's the plan as this committee is putting it out. So I just want to say, even if you have a baby today and you live in the Ward Underwood district, your child would still get through elementary school under this plan, your current elementary schools. I just want to say that this is the school committee being very visionary and long range in trying to help the system move forward in the legacy that Mayor Fuller has already put forward with all of these wonderful building projects that we are now completing. So it cues up the next generation.
And I would just add one thing that the intent is to review this every year in the context of current enrollment, funding, the capital improvement plan. So there's always going to be opportunities, sort of like we review the CIP every 6 months. This becomes sort of the framework to review those in context.
Just want to add one quick thing also for the members of the Ward community who may be listening, or former members of the Ward community, which is just an acknowledgement that Ward has been on the list as a building that has desperately needed to be replaced or renovated. Starting back at Angel Service and Cabot, they got jumped. And then recently with Countryside, they got jumped in the queue. And so it's time.
If I can just say one last thing before we open it up to the rest of the committee, just in terms of timeline and what we're envisioning is the long range planning committee will have, or working group will have a document materials available by mid-October. That will give folks the opportunity to digest that. We will hold 2 community meetings on October 23rd and 28th. And those will be for the Ward, Underwood communities, as well as anyone else who would like to be a part of them. The committee will continue to discuss this in open meetings. We will have a public hearing, which is scheduled for November 6th. And that will be an opportunity for anyone and everyone to provide input from the community. And then we will seek to hopefully wrap this up by mid-December so that we have a decision made going into the SOI process opening in January.
And also that the 2 Ward and Underwood community meetings in October will be held at Bigelow Middle School. And there'll be more information sent out to the community as we get closer.
Okay. So with that, I think we can open it up to questions or comments. Mayor Fuller?
I'm happy to wait for Rajiv or Paul or if, okay. A couple of thoughts. Let me just start by saying a huge thank you, certainly to Liam and Stephanie, but also to the superintendent and Chris and Emily and who else is on this? And Tamika. It's great to have fresh eyes and update on this and a draft in front of us. It's important, it's useful, it's timely. So thank you. I want to say this in gentle words. These are not, just, and they're not necessarily in any particular order. I think we'll have to have a robust discussion of moving Brown ahead of particularly Pierce and Mason Rice. There are real pros and cons of doing that. I can see why the draft has it that way, but that deserves a discussion of the pros and cons. I'm kind of ambivalent. I get the idea. Additional thought is I can see why it is attractive to consider doing 2 SOIs, one for Ward, one for Underwood. I think we should probe a little bit more with the MSBA. My understanding is that they have changed and no longer allow 2 schools to be submitted simultaneously. let's just double check that. There is a chance that we have to pick Ward or Underwood. And yes, check the box. We'll also think about the consolidation as opposed to both simultaneously. Let's just double check that.
We
And
definitely have to select
Pick
one
a
as the
site.
priority.
have to
I
pick
think you
one
can
as a
submit
priority.
two, but you
But
have to say which is.
you have to say which is the priority, and that's uncomfortable for us, understandably, because we love all our parents and all our students, whether at Ward or Underwood, but you really do have to pick, and that's
So I just went through this in my prior school
Yeah.
district. You have to prioritize, but they assess both schools
Right.
and
I understand.
5 other sites across the system. And they do it as part of the project. So there's a site assessment, enrollment assessment.
Yep.
So it does actually save us a lot of other expenses if we can roll it into the MSBA project.
And I will say, having been through the MSBA process a bunch over the years, it's one of the few state bureaucratic programs that actually work really well.
I agree.
It's surprising. It's a little bit slower, but it's thoughtful, it's serious, it has the right steps. And in fact, we've incorporated almost all their practices in, even when we do it
Yeah.
without the MSBA. Another thought, and this is for brainstorming as opposed to whether we should do it. At least the way that the draft plan is laid out, it has Ward and or Underwood essentially only 12 months separated from Brown. If that is serious, if that's what we're really thinking, that Brown is right after and it's really close, I think one more conversation to have. A new elementary school, if you inflated, thank you, Josh Morse, for doing this for me. This is certainly in the used MSBA guidelines and costs structures being built in the early 2030s would be roughly $100 million. We could also estimate that a new Brown would be roughly $250 million. The MSBA provides some matching funds for the whole cost. The cost of a middle school is more than the cost of an elementary school. So if you want your biggest bang for the buck with the MSBA reimbursing us, and they would be built within a year of each other, we should strongly consider having MSBA submitting for Brown. So again, we should have that discussion. It's an interesting one. I'm going to quote Liam back to Liam, or Liam and Stephanie right back to both in what they wrote to us and what Liam said, is that these are suggested timeframes and there's lots of caveats to it. I'm going to add to your caveats. I would suggest, while the need is high, to move as aggressively with buildings as possible. These buildings really need work. And, you know, I've been a big believer in moving aggressively. There's at least two things to keep in mind. If we were rebuilding both Ward and Underwood, again, a decision to make. Are we looking at a consolidated or two plus a middle school? If you do the math, we have no capacity. You'll see in the financial forecast that we're delivering on October 6th over at the City Council. We've said this for quite a while now. We've used up our debt capacity. We would absolutely need voter approvals on any school buildings for the next 10 years. There's no capacity to do it within our current finances. So we needed debt exclusion overrides, and Newton voters have been fabulous in the past. They have voted yes. I'll also add, we need a police headquarters work. So not only do we need school buildings, if we renovate at our current police headquarters, you're looking at 30 or 40 million. If we do a brand new police headquarters, that's roughly the same as an elementary school. That's about 100 million. So keep that in mind, because we also have to go to the voters for police facility as well as school facilities. Those are the major buildings in the foreseeable future. But if we needed 2 elementary schools plus a middle school, that's about $25 million in debt service each and every year for each of the following 30 years. I just want to contrast that with the entire debt service cost that our voters are currently paying right now is $28.8 million. That's for our debt excluded school buildings, our non-debt exclude, that's for our fire stations, it's for our big wheeled equipment, it's for major roofs that we bond. So 2 elementary schools and a middle school is a big, I just say it's a big number. Another way of looking at this is assuming we need voters to vote yes on a debt exclusion overrides, and I would argue very likely an operating override to back up the vision that the superintendent has for a Newton Thrive budget. So you probably need an operating override to support our schools. You probably need debt exclusion overrides to support school buildings. I just want to put this in context so people have it. Let's say the cost of an elementary school is $100 million. Let's say interest rates are 3.75%. That's, if you do the math, that's roughly $5.5 million of debt service for the $100 million school. And you have to pay it each of the 30 years. That translates into about, if you were doing a debt exclusion override for one school, then elementary, that's $156 for our average taxpayer. Sounds pretty good until you do 2 elementary schools possibly, plus a middle school, plus possibly Newton South improvements. I just did 2 elementary schools in a middle at $450 million of estimated cost. That's about $700 of debt exclusion overrides just for the schools. Plus, maybe you need an operating override. Plus, you would want to ask, I believe, Mayor here, as well as school committee member for the police headquarters. Plus, we're too low on our road paving budget, so you probably need an operating override for the city side. Plus, heads up, our stormwater fees, sorry to all of us, we all pay those as fees, not taxes. They're all about to get gigantically bigger. And another day we'll do that. So we're asking a lot of our taxpayers. It's appropriate to think it through, but I would say the scale and timing of the projects, my guess is we've got to feather it out. And again, Stephanie and Liam said that might be possible. But at the moment, the draft plan has voting to go forward in FY '29 on Ward and or Underwood, FY '30 on, if I've got this right, on Brown, and FY '31 on South projects. So they're bundled really closely together. I'm just suggesting that even in the draft plan, you got to space that out so that our voters, we want people to vote yes. And if it's too big a number, I think that jeopardizes a yes vote. So those are ideas. Again, I sound more definitive than I mean to. I mean this as brainstorming and discussion as opposed to we must do this or that.
Okay, thank you for those thoughts. Anyone else comment? Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Fuller. I think those are sobering numbers, and they're important not only in the context of this plan, but everything else we're talking about doing on the academic side. We're going to be talking about math program in a little while and other things over time. And we're going to be talking about the next contract negotiation with the unions. And what I conclude from what you're saying and my own analysis of all those things is something Chris has been talking about for a long time, that the need for the next school committee and the council and the next mayor to come up with the sustainable financial plan for the schools, capital and operating and all the rest, is going to be a really high priority. And that my personal view is that making commitments, long-range commitments, absent that plan is a fool's errand. That whether it's the labor contract or whether Brown comes before Pierce and all those things, or how much we invest in curriculum, trying to do all that without a coherent, consistent plan, which, as you suggest, is also likely to be politically acceptable in the community, is very important. Absent that plan, frankly, it's like going to an auction and bidding on things without knowing how much money you have in your bank account. And so I think it's going to be very important to do that. I think it's also important to remember that although I believe, especially with Dr. Nolan's plans, that there's tremendous support for the kind of improvements she's proposing in our academic programs, certainly among the parents and even among the non-parents, the 80% of the families that are not parents. If you look at macroeconomic factors that are likely to come into play in Massachusetts over this time period, the prospect of achieving all of that through overrides, whether debt exclusion or operating overrides, is problematic. There's a large number of our people live on fixed incomes or pensions. Federal policy right now is really eroding the ability of academic institutions and healthcare institutions to be sustainable organizations. And I think is it 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people in Newton work in academia or healthcare? And so we have to be very prudent about how we plan, how we create that financial plan. For now, Chris, yes, of course, we have to make that application without a doubt. I'm guessing, Stephanie, you would say that by checking the consolidation box, it's a better thing to do at the State Building Authority than not checking the box. It doesn't commit you to consolidation, but if you don't indicate that you're thinking about it or willing to think about it, it won't be as well received, because we've known for years that the State Building Authority has been pushing larger buildings. It's as simple as that. We also have to be cognizant of the other demands on the State Building Authority. Projects in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, some of the older and poorer cities have important political constituencies. And I agree with you that it's a very well-run agency. By the way, you didn't mention the MWRA also in that, but and so the ranking that they do is affected not only by what we want, but by what they have to produce statewide. Anyway, I too want to say that I think you did a terrific job on this. You've laid out the issues really well, and I would certainly support a vote to nominate those schools in December, and look forward to those discussions. Also looking forward to the discussions in the town hall meetings of what parents are thinking about these things. We may learn some things from that question our own assumptions about what we think those parts of the city might want for themselves. We'll see at those meetings. So thank you. Thank you for doing all the work on this. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Rajiv?
Thank you. Mayor Fuller and Paul, your comments were very sobering. So mine are going to be much more tactical. So is there any downside to submitting the SOI? I do understand, and I agree with Mayor Fuller, that we should look into whether Brown, given the scale of a replacement of Brown, potentially should go earlier. But in general, is there any downside to submitting an SOI for Ward and Underwood? So that's the first thing. Is there any downside to checking that we would be open to consolidation? And then relating to that, what discussion would we be having in the forums? Because they wouldn't be discussions to come to an agreement on consolidation or not consolidation, or I'm actually not sure what the discussion would be. So that's what I was wondering.
Do you want to address the
Yeah.
first parts of those questions?
For the community meetings.
Downsides,
Oh,
any downside?
any
Oh,
downside to
downside.
submitting
I don't
applications
think there's any downsides.
and checking consolidation.
I don't think there's any downside.
No.
It doesn't back us into anything.
And even if we were to change our mind in the following round of what building was our priority, there's no downside. Putting the information together, it's a lot of work to put the information together, but it's still beneficial.
And there's also a whole feasibility. Even if they say we're interested, there's so much information that has to happen first before we even take the next step.
Yeah. So even when we went through the process with Countryside, and we had submitted for Countryside and Franklin at the same time, but the district and city did actually vote as Countryside as the priority. When we went into kind of, the hopper of all the SOIs that were submitted, they came back to us, had follow-up conversations, and did a senior study on the Countryside project, looking to essentially basically digging deeper and getting additional information. So there was sort of another opportunity to have continued conversation with them.
Thank you. That's helpful.
In terms of the community meetings and the public hearing and the like, I think we were all sensitive to the fact that we know this has been going on for ever. And there's, in the past been some false starts with the process and the like, and we just want to make sure we are putting all the information out to the community. We're being present to answer questions that folks have, and make sure that, everyone's engaged, has their say, and more fully informed as we go through it. The one thing I'll add, a couple of you mentioned the Brown. We did discuss that, and I think your assertion is correct. It's a larger ticket item. I think we ultimately just came to the conclusion that, given where this process has been with Ward and Underwood, we felt that it was appropriate to move forward with the SOI there and now. Again, that's to Stephanie's point. That the order of these projects, et cetera, can change over time. Dr. Knowles?
I just also wanted to say, Rajiv, that no matter what we say in this meeting tonight or when we put the materials out, so for example, it actually says at the bottom of this that, we can only put one building forward. We got a ton of traffic today from everybody who hadn't read through all the materials but heard something's happening with Ward and Underwood, right? Including even city councilors, right? So having the meeting and explaining the MSBA process and explaining what the steps are and saying is just good for everyone. Here's what the steps would be. We would put this together, and then this is what would happen, and this is when it would happen, if it happened exactly according to plan. Because I think there's this shaken feeling that the Ward Underwood community has every time we raise their buildings. And so that was the thinking there. Everybody together, Ward and Underwood, not separate meetings, not trying to pit any building against each other. Just here's what the process could be. And it actually weighs all the needs of those buildings in this process. So that was, I think it's just important to keep everybody informed all along the way, not just at the point where we're like, oh, the building was approved. Which one is it going to be? Right.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I was trying to understand if these forums were feeding into whether or not to submit an SOI or whether or not to check the box. If it's community engagement and ensuring that everyone understands the process, the steps, the timeline, and also very importantly that the MSBA could simply say no.
Right.
Right. That's it. I'm glad we're doing that.
And likely we'll say no this year.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a few at-bats to get it done.
Tamika, and then
Thank you. I do want to just say I'm very grateful to Mayor Fuller and to Paul for giving breath to some considerations that we should properly factor in and consider. I will say I don't disagree with any of the things you put forward. In fact, I largely do agree. And because I largely do agree, I think it's important to point out that the decision point of this committee is in my mind, a no-brainer. It's a request to just put forth an offer. Whether the MSBA takes us up on that or not, that would be wonderful if they were to take us up. It is a decision point owned and held by a future school committee and a future mayor to determine where we're driving in terms of our funding for all of the things that we, as a committee, as a district, and as a city, would like to do. And so I think keeping both of those things and keeping all the things that you've laid forward, keeping them sort of compartmentalized, but certainly a part of the conversation and a part of the calculation is important. But we need to make sure that our part here is we're putting forward the initial offer. So that's just how I'm thinking about it, and I think it's helpful to think about it in that way.
Mayor Fuller.
Let me just throw out one other thing that I think we should brainstorm. We as a community have to go through the decision making. Are we doing Ward? Are we doing Underwood? Are we doing Ward and Underwood? Or are we doing a consolidated Ward Underwood? We've got to do that hard work anyway. And yes, the MSBA process leads you through it. We know how to do that hard work. And yep, it's tough. We can do that. one could imagine, don't go to the MSBA for Ward and or Underwood. Commit to doing the hard work, thinking it through. That speeds it up a lot. It means you can go out, we still need a debt exclusion override vote to pay for it. So you need it for the MSBA process, but we need it anyway. Do our hard work, go out much sooner instead of kids moving into a new Ward and or Underwood in 2033. It has the advantage, Chris and Superintendent, but it's still years away, so that anybody who's currently at the school will, and certainly the promise that was made a year or two ago, I'm forgetting when exactly we said, we can commit to for 5 years, no kid's going to be, we could move forward. And you, again, consider doing the SOI for the bigger project. If Brown, it is the will of the group that really should be what next, because Brown, it'll take a while. That's not a bad one to spread out over years. It'll probably have to go through at least 2 MSBA cycles before it's even accepted. I think it would be accepted. I think between condition and size, et cetera, it would be attractive for the MSBA. So it's just another way. And again, committing to our Ward and Underwood communities, we are serious. And instead of kids moving into the school in 2033 or 2034, you could actually move that forward if you did that as a standalone debt exclusion vote for whatever the decision is. It's those schools, they're so old and they're so inaccessible, and the condition, they're very attractive yes votes, I think. So just another thought. Again, I'm not wedded to that, but I think it's worth batting around.
Well, Chris, just to follow up on that, I think MSBA finances about 30% of the cost?
Yes.
We might actually want to look at the present value to the city, the cost to the city of the shorter planning horizon that the mayor has just talked about for Ward and Underwood without MSBA support versus the longer one during which construction costs will go up an extra 2 or 3 years. And it might turn out to be neutral with regard to actual cost to taxpayers in Newton, looking at it that way for those 2 schools. Plus, then you have that issue resolved sooner. So I think it'd be interesting to run the numbers on that and see if it's close. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Great, let's move on to our math update.
Okay. I'm just going to start while Dr. Flanagan and Math Director Jen Shore get set up. I feel like we've been building towards this moment for years. So in the past year, we shared our 10-year plan for all curriculum cycle reviews for all subject areas for the Newton Public Schools. The math program and the curriculum review was chosen first as it is the hottest topic and area of concern and interest with the Newton Public Schools community. So Newton community, you are learning the process of a curriculum review as we go through this review. Since curriculum review of this nature and magnitude has not occurred in a long time, and in math, it's been over 2 decades since such a review happened, although a K-5 curriculum deployment was chosen, piloted, deployed, but was never actually formally adopted by you, the committee. This was Investigations Math, which is a strong program that I've picked twice in other districts. That said, we are in a pre-K to 12 curriculum review. Last spring, we presented on the consultant-facilitated self-study. The consultants were hired because Dr. Flanagan was 2 days in her job when we started this process, and we needed that added assistance in the transition. Their task was to document the current state of the curriculum and the current pedagogical philosophy. And as part of that study, survey data was obtained from parents, staff, and students. And as you recall, both here and in the papers, there was a lot of clamor due to dueling public statement about parts of our math program, what we were studying and what we weren't, which was largely not helpful as it overshadowed the real agreement that actually turned out to exist in the feedback in the surveys between the parents, students, and the staff. And they agreed on the facts that we need a total program revision to address the needs of our students and to create a more unified program. I do want to thank all of our teachers who have been serving as their own curriculum design people, their own assessment designers, their own course creators, their own material acquisition specialists, basically serving in central office roles and using sometimes their own monies to supplement curriculum. Your efforts are appreciated. And as we move, however, to being a school system versus a system of schools, we want a unified, supportive, coordinated curriculum moving forward, and we're pleased to be able to help with that. So tonight's presentation gives the community the first and most substantive overview of the math program redesign. So we share it conceptually this evening so that the public can understand the revision of the current multi-level program. And we will no longer have that multi-level program. Instead, we will switch to a data-driven, rigorous, and supportive math program that allows for more personalized math pathways for all students. There are parts of the plan, and you heard that from our speakers tonight at Public Speak, that is a pathway for every iteration of children currently in the Newton Public Schools that are still in development. There have been some very creative and unusual end runs made by parents and students to change the math program as it currently exists, supplement it, and augment it. We surveyed parents about it. We know that many parents are supplementing the mathematics program and therefore accelerating their students into various places. And we cannot present a solution tonight that solves for every single one of those puzzling moments and children today. However, you will see in the base program the intention, for example, to do so. We are still grappling with how we might, for example, handle those students who are several grade levels above elementary school and middle school, the typical grade level, and those who are gifted in mathematics. Those are two different categories of learners, and sometimes there is overlap. We are meeting with companies and have been reaching out to various other programs to find the kinds of resources and assessments that would accurately place and plan for these types of learners. Newton parents are no joke, and we are not going to be able to place students in advanced levels without something indefensible. So we are taking our time to unroll that last portion of this phased plan. So the decision is in the offing, and I want families to know that we're not off of that idea. But frankly, the implementation of this change in program, the overhaul of our current program, and the creation of the pathway redesign and the support and funding of it are really the prerequisite for us to have all the phases of the program implemented. The overview that you're going to hear about tonight and our curriculum exploration of materials and pilots has been presented to all of our staff members, and we are grateful to the Polynera Group, who you heard from Mr. Sherman this evening, who, after hearing of our program redesign, wanted to assist us in doing the report that is also included in your materials this evening, a report that shows how districts like ours fit into a national landscape and a national set of peers to address similar math challenges. We believe that we have taken and will take the best of these national and state programmatic aspects to create our own next generation program. Please note that our proposal does not track students in traditional and inflexible ways, but it does provide ability pathways into which students are placed after a yearly data-driven process to understand their needs. You're going to hear me state, though, over and over, that if we are a district that states we are committed to rigorous math and high expectations, coupled with high support for students, think calculus project level supports for every student, then the program we designed here needs to be fully funded with the materials, training, math specialists and interventionists to both challenge advanced students and support the struggling learners with well-designed instruction. And so with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Flanagan and Director Shore to tell you what this is all about. What does it actually look like to the students before us?
Thank you, everyone. It's good to see you. I want to begin by expressing my deep gratitude to our staff and students and our families across Newton who shared thoughtful feedback about our math programs and instruction over the past year and a half. It also reflects the research and conversations we had with math leaders across the state about what they found to be the most effective approaches to math programming. Our new pathways are designed with one goal at the center: to ensure that every student receives what they need when they need it so that all of our learners can thrive. While we are charting a strategic direction in delivery of math instruction, it's important to pause and recognize what makes this work possible: our exceptional math teachers. Their dedication, expertise, and unwavering commitment to students are the foundation of our progress. And while we are on the quest for high-quality common curriculum, the what of teaching that is outlined by DESE, it is the how of teaching that brings our classrooms to life, and this is and always will be the role of the classroom teacher. What you will see tonight in tonight's presentation, it lays the groundwork for a model that will continue to be refined and strengthened in the years ahead. With the collaboration and expertise of our teachers, we will fine-tune the pathways so that they meet the needs of all students and reflect the highest standards of excellence in teaching and learning. In addition to providing you an overview of the math pathways, we'd also like to take this opportunity to update you on the work of the math curriculum committees, who is currently in phase 2 of the math curriculum process. Tonight, we're going to update you on the math curriculum pilots that are underway and our plans to provide our staff the opportunity to dialogue around the topic of which pathway, integrated or traditional math, makes the most sense for our students. In regards to the pathways, we'll provide you with a little background information. We'll share the vision of the pathways and provide you some highlights of the pathways. We also will show you what it will look like for students and what the plan will be for implementation. Lastly, we will share with you the next steps with the development and refinement of the math pathways to ensure a successful implementation. And now I'm going to turn it over to our new Director of Mathematics, Jennifer Shore, to highlight the current curriculum work that our teachers have been engaged with phase 2 of the process.
Good evening, everyone. The design of our math pilots was intentionally structured to amplify teacher input and feedback at every stage, while also reflecting best practices in pilot implementation and ensuring consistency across grade levels. Beginning in the spring and summer, teams of teachers and math specialists reviewed program samples using a common rubric to establish a shared evaluation framework. 2 programs were selected at each level that meet the high standards of MPS and align with the district vision and strategic goals. From there, principals, math specialists, and department heads solicited teacher interest in participating in the pilots, encouraging teams to pilot together. This participation was entirely optional. Working with the support of the math department, pilot teams identified 1 unit in each program to implement, ensuring the pilot was both manageable and meaningful. Finally, scope and sequences were carefully adjusted to guarantee students had a comprehensive learning experience throughout the year. This process ensures that teacher voice drives the work, that pilots are implemented with fidelity and equity across the district, and that we collect high-quality feedback to guide our curriculum decisions. This slide highlights how we are grounding our pilot process in best practices to ensure high-quality implementation and meaningful feedback. Each step is designed to provide strong professional learning, structured support, and consistent opportunities for input from teachers, administrators, and students. Pilot teams began with professional development from each vendor and ongoing support from math specialists and department heads. Importantly, both teachers and students contributed will contribute their perspectives through surveys, ensuring we capture the full range of experiences. In addition, teachers and administrators are invited to observe lessons and provide feedback using a common observation tool. Together, these steps create a comprehensive and consistent process that prioritizes teacher voice, student experience, and actionable feedback. This slide outlines the decision-making timeline for our math curriculum review, moving from data analysis to recommendations and ultimately to adoption and preparation for implementation. The process is structured to ensure that teacher and student feedback, assessment data, and classroom observations directly shape our decisions. So late January, we'll begin by analyzing all of the data gathered, assessment results, survey feedback, and submitted observation rubrics, together with the Math Curriculum Review Committee. This ensures our decisions are grounded in multiple measures of evidence. Then the following month, in late February, based on this analysis, the committee will work to agree on grade level recommendations. This allows us to align across schools and ensures consistency in our next phase. April 2026 will be the final adoption selections presented to you, the school committee, for approval. Oh, I guess not to you, but to somebody. At the same time, we will begin planning professional development to ensure a smooth rollout in the fall. One of the big decisions that needs to be made is whether the high schools continue to follow the integrated math model or if the change is made to the traditional model. This slide outlines the key differences between the two pathways and describes the process we'll use to guide our decision-making. Our goal is to ensure that our pathway model is grounded in research, aligned with best practices, and reflective of teacher and staff input. Traditional pathways are courses, the way we think of them, probably that you participated in growing up, where it's Algebra 1, then Geometry, then Algebra 2, which limits opportunities for students to make connections across topics. Concepts are revisited less frequently, and real-world applications are more compartmentalized. Integrated pathways combine algebra, geometry, statistics, and other strands within each course. The spiraling structure allows students to revisit concepts over several years, make cross-topic connections, and apply math to real-world problem solving. The process we're going to follow to help make this decision is to share research-based articles and reports with both high school math departments, use conversation prompts and protocols to deepen understanding, and gather teacher feedback to help guide our discussions. Both of our high schools currently use the integrated approach in practice. Final decisions will involve math department heads, principals, district leaders, and the superintendent. Considerations will include staff feedback, relevant research, and our self-study. Our goal is to have this decision made by February 2026.
Before we move on, is there any questions that we could answer for you on either the pilots or our approach to the integrated math and traditional pathway conversations? Great.
Can I just prompt you, the way that if you go to the integrated math versus traditional pathways, I have no idea about any of these, but the way it's written under traditional, it's all the negatives with no positives. And the integrated, it's all positives with no negatives. I encourage you on the next round to add some of the positives of the traditional and some of the drawbacks of integrated.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
It's clearly little.
Thank you. But for the record, we do not really have any input on that right now. We're just taking in the research.
Just feels,
it
feels
Yep.
to a layperson.
Sure. So as I stated earlier, the math pathway model is in response to the feedback that we received from our community and the research that we gathered from various sources with experience and expertise in math implementation. Mathematics, as you know, is very important to all of our stakeholders with a good reason. First, mathematics is a powerful tool for everyday life. Whether managing finances or analyzing data, building technology, or making informed decisions, strong math skills are essential in virtually every field and facet of life. Every student's math journey is also unique. Some students may need additional time and support to build a strong foundation, while others may be ready to dive deeper into advanced concepts or explore specialized areas of interest. Our new math pathways are designed with this diversity in mind. The pathways are designed to help develop competent and capable mathematicians, and this is the essence of a true multi-tiered system of support. And finally, one of our guiding principles for the math pathways is that mathematics needs to be a gateway, not a gatekeeper to future success. The vision for our mathematics pathways is by personalizing math experiences and offering multiple on-ramps to advanced learning, we ensure that all students, from those who need extra support to those who are ready for accelerated challenges, get what they need when they need it. The new math pathways serve as a model for MTSS because they are built on the same principles of providing tiered levels of support, using data to guide placement, and ensuring that every student gets what they need when they need it. Just as MTSS uses universal screening, targeted interventions, and enrichment to meet diverse learner needs, the pathways rely on common assessment, flexible supports, and acceleration options so students can progress appropriately while still maintaining access to a rigorous core. To expand on the principles of MTSS, the new pathways offers more rigor for all students. With the shift to offering integrated math or Algebra 1 for all 8th grade students, every student will engage with more rigorous and complex mathematics, opening pathways to more advanced coursework when they reach high school. Enrichment for advanced students. The new pathways ensure that advanced learners are supported through targeted enrichment opportunities, allowing them to deepen their understanding of 8th grade standards while also accelerating into higher level content to prepare them for advanced coursework in high school beginning their freshman year. This is achieved through the Algebra 1 Integrated Accelerated Math Pathway in middle school, opportunities to take higher level math courses beginning their freshman year, advanced high school math courses that prepare students for STEM studies or careers or lifelong math skill development, and finally, dual enrollment in high school. The flexible on-ramps, there will be multiple opportunities for students to move forward with the new pathways. The integrated math or Algebra 1 for all 8th grade students with support and or extensions as needed. There will be personalized pathway plans that can be made for students to help them in need of advancement or to support in consultation with the district. Movement between pathways is more fluid and timely whenever growth is demonstrated, and data-driven progress monitoring identifies readiness. There will also be expanded high school STEM opportunities, revamped electives that match interest and career goals, and access to complex, engaging math experiences for all learners. Before I dive into the contents of this slide that might look a bit much, I do want to point out two important points to help navigate the information presented here. You'll see the term Algebra 1 or IM1 and 1, 2, and 3 throughout the next few slides. This is intentional as the high school math educators will be engaging in a discussion and decision-making on whether to continue with integrated math model or pivot to the traditional pathways for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. We use these terms in the next slide so you have an understanding of the course content. However, it's important to note these courses are called Math 1, 2, and 3 at both high schools. Currently, the curriculum of these courses is in need of alignment between the two high schools in terms of what standards are taught in these courses. Secondly, the chart serves as a foundation to the math pathways from 6th through 12th grade, but there will be some fine-tuning in terms of how these elements are implemented in real time. With Algebra 1 available to all 8th grade students, it is essential to have key components in place to ensure every student's success. Our math pathways are designed to be rigorous yet flexible, offering personalized pathways, on-ramps, and opportunities for both intensive support and advanced enrichment. To do this well, we need a clear understanding of each middle school student's math abilities. That understanding comes from a strong and balanced system of assessments with clear criteria for placement that are embedded into daily instruction. Rather than being overwhelming, these assessments include common assessment units, the STAR assessment, the annual MCAS assessment. In addition, we are developing targeted tools to help identify students who may be ready for advanced math challenges through middle school enrichment blocks. Please note that we acknowledge that there are students who demonstrate math skills way above grade level, and we will be creating a plan for these students as well, as Dr. Nolan alluded to earlier. Once we have a clear understanding of each student's individual math abilities, the pathways are designed to provide the right level of support, whether that means catching up or taking on new challenges. The success of the model relies on targeted interventions led by skilled math specialists, summer programs that help students reach grade level expectations, and enrichment opportunities that allow advanced learners to extend their skills with the guidance of these math specialists. Our goal is that with the right combination of data, supports, and enrichment, every student will be prepared to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. At the same time, we recognize that no two students are alike, and their progression in developing math skills may differ. For this reason, we will continue to implement a system of data-driven supports in 8th grade. This is a pivotal year in a student math's journey. After building foundational skills from kindergarten through grade 7, students are ready to apply mathematics in a more advanced and real-world concepts in high school. By 8th grade, some students may be already ready for greater challenges, which is why we are offering an accelerated integrated Math 1 or Algebra 1 pathway. The accelerated option in 8th grade maintains the integrated Math 1 and algebra standards while increasing rigor through the tasks that emphasize complexity, critical thinking, and problem solving. I also wanted to mention that this is guided by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They have designed a pathway, accelerated pathways, where districts have the flexibility to design their own pathways supported by DESE frameworks, resources, and grants. Though its accelerated roadmap, DESE also encourages equity and access by advising districts on how to identify and support students ready for advanced coursework. Typically, these pathways compress standards so students can reach higher level math, such as calculus, earlier, with eligibility based on test scores, grades, and teacher recommendations. As students transition into high school, our goal is to provide more rigorous math experience that strengthen critical thinking, problem solving, and real-world applications, preparing them for future studies, careers, and daily life. We will continue to use common assessments, targeted interventions, and summer programming, and advanced math courses to ensure students receive the right support at the right time. In addition, we plan to review and expand our STEM electives to offer more relevant applied math experiences. These new electives also give our most advanced students the opportunity to tackle complex mathematical challenges that further their academic and career aspirations. So this slide is quite a doozy, and I don't know.
Gina, do you mind just going back for 1 second? I just want to say, in case folks don't know, because maybe you have little people in the elementary school, or maybe you're a senior citizen who's just curious about math and you're tuning in tonight. Currently at our middle schools, we do not cover the Algebra 1 standards. They are covered in 9th grade. So I just want to say that this is a rigorous shift to actually accelerate the entire district by at least a year, depending on where your child is in the trajectory of study. And from there, we may determine that great other fine tuning is needed. So for example, if, as you heard from one of our public speakers, there are children who are well beyond that, that accelerated pathway may look different as the floor rises and we actually see what the next generation floor is. We'll be able to continue to adapt based on that. And I just want to say that these standards are not covered at all in middle school per se. They are a 9th grade phenomenon. So I also just want to say that we have very different programs at our high school. Well, we also have very different programs at all 4 of our middle schools. So again, we're trying to align everything so that everybody, regardless of school that you go to or teacher that you have, has the same standards covered, and each teacher will put their secret sauce on how they do it, but that we have a program we can stand behind, and parents and kids have a predictable way to either get support or advancement. And those little light green boxes there, you're going to hear me talk about those over and over in our financial discussions this budget season, because if we really want this and we want an equitable system that allows every kid a shot to get what they need when they need it, the intervention, summer catch-up and acceleration courses and enrichment all need to be a part of the repertoire in our middle school, which currently there are not those services at all.
Thank you. So this next slide, which you've seen before, outlines the implementation plan for the curriculum and assessment development at both the high school and middle schools. Our long-term goal is to establish a clear pathway to Algebra 1 for all students by 2029-30 school year. At the same time, our transition plan is designed to prepare middle school students for Algebra 1 sooner, God bless, enabling them to access advanced courses as early as ninth grade beginning next year. To achieve this, we are going to need to compact the grade 6, 7, and grade 7 and 8 math courses and create a new 8th grade course with intensified Algebra 1 and integrated math standards. At the high school level, we are also working to expand the advanced STEM-related electives, a process that is already underway and in discussions with our high school teachers. So there's some very key next steps that we must take within our math curriculum committee and the work that we're doing with teachers across the districts. First off, we need to really focus on the communications of the pathways across the district. So we are going to continue to develop conversations with staff. Yeah, just this past week, Dr. Nolan, myself, and Jen Shore were at one of the high schools to answer questions and really try to help them understand the direction we're going to. We're going to continue those type of discussions across the district with teachers. We're also working right now, as we were waiting for this meeting, but we have a communication ready to go to our families and caregivers to ensure that they are well versed on the plan and give them the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback as well. In terms of the actual work that needs to be done to get ready for this, is, as Dr. Nolan mentioned earlier, we are in communication with a number of different assessment companies that specialize in providing high quality assessments to determine the ability levels of students, not only, students that are at grade level and above, but also for our outlier students that are well above grade level. So those conversations are happening so that we can make sure that the assessment that we use can be used in conjunction with a very clear criteria for these decisions. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to need to compact a lot of our middle school courses, and Ms. Shore is going to be working with our teachers during their citywide time to work on that collaboratively. We are also very aggressively, as Dr. Nolan mentioned, going to be advocating for funding for these math specialists. It's really important to the success of this program that we have people in place that can support students on both ends of the spectrum. And then lastly, one of the things that is high on our list is to restructure the existing WIN blocks and the times that are given at the middle school to provide students very targeted support, again, on either end of the spectrum in terms of where they are with their mathematic abilities. So that is all for us tonight. I'm sure you have many questions, and we'd be happy to answer them for you at this time.
Okay, thank you for the thorough presentation. Let's open it up to questions, comments from the members. Paul?
Thank you very much. I just want to make a couple observations and I have one question. And the observation really stems from the entry plans that Dr. Nolan and Dr. Flanagan presented to us after arriving at the district, looking around, getting a sense of what was what. And what was very clear in both of those entry plans was that in this area in particular, the district had a lack of curricular standards. It had a lack of pedagogical expectations and standards, a lack of targeted professional development to help the teachers in this area, a lack of assessments of our students so that really we didn't know how the children were achieving, and overall a lack of accountability for the district as a whole. And that had been in place for many years. And the result was, first, as Dr. Nolan mentioned tonight, a very unsupportive environment for very dedicated teachers in this field, where people had to do their own work from start to finish, spending their own money, spending hours and hours of time in a way that, as I look back, it was frankly abusive to those very dedicated professionals. So secondly, of course, there were highly mixed results for the students. And third, it generated a lack of confidence on the part of the parents, who therefore invested in a parallel system of education using outside vendors so that their children could learn math. And frankly, the inclination at the time was to blame the parents for doing that, saying that's the source of the problem. They're sending their children to Russian School of Math, and that's why the kids are bored in school. And they were just responding for what they felt was best for their children. And now I think what you've all presented is a very fresh and welcome view of the whole topic. Not only substantively with regard to what you're presenting, but the willingness to be transparent, open, and accountable, even to the point of putting in our records an unsolicited report by an expert organization so that we would have another point of view before us, which doesn't exactly merge with the one you've presented. I think that's really noteworthy and admirable that you're doing that. Also, and this is where I'm so happy that Shore is involved in this, we can be confident, based on her previous work and inclinations, that you will be applying, in essence, the scientific method to the choices that you're going to be making here. You're going to have hypotheses, you're going to invent experiments, you're going to test, you're going to measure, you're going to modify, and then you're going to rinse and repeat. And I think that's all to the good. And I'm very, very optimistic about what you've presented. So my question, notwithstanding all that, is, over the years we've looked, the teaching of math has gone through lots of permutations. It's striking that the same material is viewed in a different way every decade or two, because it is the same material, right? And the question I have for you is, what from the research or your own experience makes you reasonably comfortable that you've come up with the right model for our times and for this community? We had some public comments tonight suggesting we're not aiming high enough. There's the old Wayne Gretzky expression, you miss 100% of the goals that you don't, miss 100% of the shots, the goals that you don't take, the shots that you don't take.
Let me help you with this.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Actually, Wayne Gretzky's father said that, and he borrowed it from his father. Are we missing opportunities here? Are we aiming too low? I mean, should we be aiming for Singapore levels here? Or are we aiming to be in the middle of a peer group? What are we aiming for? And why are you comfortable with what you're suggesting? And how would you make mid-course corrections if it turns out you're not aiming high enough or you're aiming too low?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So the first thing I want to mention is that we started this journey, both Dr. Nolan, myself, and some of our central office leaders, as well as Ms. Shore. We did a lot of research as to what other districts are doing. And what I learned from that process is that many districts are in the same boat that we are in terms of what's the right approach. And the one thing I can say that I've learned is that it's very personalized. You have to look at the students in front of you in order to make the right decisions. And so what might work in one school district may not be appropriate for Newton. And I think that we've taken that to heart in terms of the research that we've done, the conversations we've had with students, teachers, and families, is that we want to learn as much as we can about what the needs are and what the desires are so that we can indeed make the right decisions. We've also spent a lot of time doing a lot of research. Last year, we partnered with Hanover Research Company to provide us some really quality research studies that have been done in this area. So we have been going through those. But again, I want to emphasize that even with research study, we have to be careful because in any research, the variables might not match up to our district. And so you take what you can and you apply what you can. I feel very confident that the approach that we are taking, which is research-based, listening to our stakeholders, soliciting the partnership and collaboration with our teachers, getting the feedback from our students, and working in general and collaboratively is the right approach. And I think that if we are all united and we, continue to stay the course and be flexible and open to feedback, I think we'll get to the right place. In terms of course correction, I will share that we've already made some course corrections as we go through this process. This process is not perfect, and we, there, like even with the pilots, we had even the best, research-based model we presented. When we went to our teachers, some of them had questions with it and said, yeah, that doesn't work for us. And we're like, you know what, we get it. And so let's make it work. So I think that approach is valuable in so many different ways. But I really feel that if we can get through the planning of this, do some quality implementations, give teachers supports, give students the supports, I think we'll have something that no other district will have, quite frankly, because I get calls from my colleagues who are in the same position asking questions of what you're doing and can we share information. So I think we're heading in the right place. Again, a lot of work to be done, but I think we're getting there.
If I could just add, I cut my teeth as an administrator doing math placement that was the thing that I did as a middle school vice principal and principal. And there aren't districts that are putting their stake in the ground about every student getting algebra, not the accelerated pathway. A lot of school systems do that as an accelerated pathway for only advanced students. We're saying everyone. So that's a first, I think, rigorous place. We need to get these assessments for our students. This is the first year that we had math benchmarking at the middle school. So I know there's a lot of parents out there who are convinced their children are 7 grade levels ahead. I'm not convinced that the problem is as large in scope. I'm happy to be wrong, but we actually need a good measure to figure that out. And so that has been surprisingly hard to find because our elementary norms show that we are much higher than the average elementary system. So we need a truly rigorous assessment. And quite honestly, there's only a few out there and we're kicking the tires on what those are. And what do we really want to measure? And this is where, so I don't read any negative connotation in a traditional versus a segmented, but maybe it's because I'm in the biz, but there are different tests that assess for different things. If we're looking for application and creative use of mathematical knowledge, that's one type of test. If we're looking for a giftedness sorter, that's a different kind of test. And if we're looking at just can kids do really well with rote memorization and execution of mathematics formulas, that's a different test. So we're trying to build that portfolio. So I suspect that we may make revisions at some other time. There may be, and there were in other districts I've worked on, cohorts of children at times that do need double acceleration. But I also have to ask the Newton families a question that there is an arms race afoot that Russian math is a part of and other things. And maybe it's all about the crisis of confidence in what we're doing, but it's also that there are certain programs that only people can vie for if they have been accelerated. So case in point, and we're grateful to the Polynera Group for doing some national research on this. For example, MIT sponsors a summer camp that you can only get in if you've had algebra by 8th grade. So here we were foreclosing that opportunity for our young people. But I do want to say that at some point, if you have taken all the high school math by 9th grade, what is your goal? What would you like to have happen next? And people can say, well, college, but we aren't a college. Now, can we offer dual enrollment? Yes, we can. Typically that profile of super duper advanced students is not who the Commonwealth thinks of when they talk about dual enrollment. They're really looking at kids who don't see themselves as traditional college students. So the monies to pay for that are not in the bucket that we would be in. There have been times in the past where cadres of students have taken college courses while they were in high school. So I guess I just ask a philosophical question to us as a community. Are we trying to do college earlier? So that is a question that it seems some folks would like to do. So we have to answer that question, but I need to assess the landscape for real, not just on anecdote about who believes their young people are advanced to a certain degree. This is the first year we've had the benchmarking, so I don't have any big trend data like I can tell you about our 4th and 5th graders. I have 3 years of data. We know some things. Jen studied them at length. So we have a little time till they reach the 6th grade pathway, and then I think we may have to make some adjustments at that time.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Other comments? Tamika, then Rajiv?
Thanks, Chris. So I just feel compelled to interject a cautionary note on assumptions. It is incredibly tempting to make the causal connection between the rise of programs like Russian math and and to extrapolate from that there is then some corollary lowering of trust in NPS and its ability in our teachers to deliver quality math instruction. I think we should reject that full stop as a base rote assumption. I don't think that one begets the other. And the reason I don't think that is because as a parent, you're always going to give your child what it is you're perceiving that your child needs. Some parents, and I've been there myself, are going to give their children additional tutoring in English if there's a deficit there, that they're struggling. Some parents are going to give their children additional supports in athletics, whatever it is. I think it's not necessarily the case that because kids are taking Russian math or the like type of programs that means that our schools are failing in some regard. It might just be that there is some, a race to accelerate or a desire to accelerate. And that then changes the landscape of which you as educators have to work with. The complexity of the students and the complexity of their needs is scattered. And I think this particular plan that you have articulated, it's touching on that scatter. It's trying to meet the kids who need more because they're not getting the exposure to those additional programs. It's trying to meet the kids who are having them and, desire something that's keeping pace or pushing them further than where they are. That's all well and good. I think we have to keep as the center of this plan what you've done, which is to look at our students, analyze where they are, figure out what are the drivers that are going to make it so that they can get to a place where, I'm looking at these 2 options in 8th grade. Some kids are going to plop right in and they're going to be ready to go. To the extent that there are going to be kids that do need those additional supports to get them ready, your plan does that. It gets them there. And I think the other thing that was important for this committee when we first started having these conversations was to have these different pathways. You not only touched on that, you've kind of embedded the different pathways and made that a core tenet of this plan and how it can not stifle anyone's, trajectory in math. It has the different ways of making sure that that kids are advancing when they're ready to advance and getting supports when they need those supports. I think for those reasons, it is an admirable plan. To the folks that are going to look at this and say, well, it doesn't do enough or it needs to do more. You're always going to have that, desire to do more and bigger and greater things than we can do. That's going to require additional funds and additional planning on that on your part. But I think what we have here is a very comprehensive, very well thought out, and a plan that meets the needs of our students in our district at this time and factors in many of the things that you've been hearing from a large swaths of our constituents. So, for me, it's heading in the right direction. It's going to be refined over time. It's thoughtful. It's going to need a lot of funding. You touched on that as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how we do this, what parts we can move on at what point. You've laid out a nice plan here, plotted out over time. And it's just, I think it's important for us to keep our eye on the ball. I'm not going to try your sports metaphor, Paul. But to keep our eye on the ball and make sure that we're moving in a direction that's supporting our kids and the needs of our district. So thank you for the work.
Thank you, Tamika. Rajiv?
So thank you for the update on the work. I certainly feel pretty comfortable that you're taking a thoughtful approach, casting the net wide and trying to come up with a curriculum and a structure of supports that will address, as I think Tamika referred to it, a really broad set of students who we have to make sure we support. So just a couple of quick suggestions as you go through this process. I think the three main questions that parents have are, is there movement between pathways, right? So that may be something to think about and assess as we go through this process. No one wants their child to be put on a track from which she can't move up to the next one, or put on a track from which might decide that they want to go with something that's more standard and focus on theater or whatever else it might be. So I think that movement between pathways and tracking it, where we just have had no data in terms of multi-level classes, would be really helpful. The other is the just right approach, and I think you've really put a lot in place for that. Like, are we going to have the supports for students who need those supports? Are we going to have the challenges available for students who are truly gifted or who happen to be, ahead of grade level? So assessing that over time, I think, is going to be helpful. And then having a clear sense of outcomes. We've had, at least in the Newton social media bubble, an outsized focus on AP scores. And there is nothing wrong with looking at our district's AP scores in math and thinking about, what trends have we seen, or, what's driving those trends and so on. But what is going to show us that we are being successful here with students who need extra support, with the high achievers, with special ed students, with ELL students, etc. I think those are the things that, as you speak to future school committees, are going to be important. So I just wanted to put that out there, and then also in terms of bringing this to life for families and students, showing some sample pathways might not be a bad idea. Like, you have a student does 8th grade algebra, he may end up in a variety of classes as he progresses, may choose to go up or down depending on the love of math and other things. Maybe laying out a few of those especially as you get to a decision point, might be helpful.
We're actually in the works of planning a math informational night for parents, so that would be a great suggestion to incorporate in our presentation. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I want to reassure you, Rajiv, that our dashboard that we put together has some metrics designed to keep us honest on this. If you can think of other ones, we're certainly open. But one is, what is the % of students completing algebra successfully with mastery by the end of grade 8? So that would be one. Second, we're going to track who has access by subgroups to advanced level courses. So right now, we've already taken a baseline of what it looks like right now for math and who's in it and who's not, and we're going to track it from there by subgroup. And then finally, we have to create these, of course, but those common assessments that Dr. Flanagan talked about, we're actually going to report to you mastery level by common assessment 4 times a year in every subject. So what did we think we taught and how did they master it is important. And then that's really driven by teacher curation, and like they say, if this is what it takes to show you that a kid has mastered geometry, then this is what we're going to collect. And we're going to, by year 5 of the plan, we're actually reporting that out to you all.
On that subject?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I suggest one, or not just
sure.
one, but the ease of accessing the pathways? For me, that's going to be important. Like, you can have a pathway, but if it's so impractical to access it, then you can't access it. So, yeah.
Thanks, Rajiv. Emily?
Thank you. A number of my colleagues have asked or touched on things that I wanted to speak about. But I have 3 things. First is, there's been a lot of focus on accelerating kids who are accelerated, and then some with the MTSS and the students who are possibly struggling with mastery. But I don't want to forget the kids in the middle. And I think that's an important thing that can sometimes get set by the wayside, because we're so focused on the accelerated students and the ones who need additional support. So I love the idea of there being electives for students, and those electives shouldn't just be for kids who are accelerated. I mean, I can see applied math class, with the real world, what The Sims used to be in the high school many years ago. And also computer programming. You don't have to be an honors student to be a successful computer programmer. And I feel like I've banged on that drum for the last 6 years, and I'll keep doing it. So just a little feedback about that, because they deserve to be as excited about math as everybody else. So
We've actually just sent some of our high school math teachers the opportunity to attend a webinar for financial literacy, which I think captures a wide net as well. So we're looking at those different pieces.
and programming.
Yes, and programming. Yes. Yeah.
A little more exciting than the financial piece, although it is amazing
Important.
life skill, and I'm not saying anything negative about it. So that was one. Second is this is going to be really professional development heavy. And I'm a little concerned and worried about funding and how that's going to end up being, and that then ties with my really super logistical question, because that's where my brain goes to as a project manager. So so I have that last slide that you have where it's different colors, and then like the green comes in once they stop doing what they had been doing. Yeah, exactly. Previously, and they'll flip to something new. And so in my brain, there are teachers in the high schools, some of whom are going to be teaching the old curriculum, and some of whom are going to be teaching the new curriculum. And how does that work? I mean, it's a very specific thing.
Do you mean in the pilots, or do you mean as we transition?
As we transition.
So there is a compacting that has to happen, and then a rolling up of new curriculum. It's not like everybody all at once. So there will be some folks, but to Paul's earlier point, I mean, the concepts are not necessarily different.
Yes, they're just.
So it's what sequence, what order, what resources, and we have to make a decision in terms of our identity. Are we doing the single discipline math courses, formerly known as traditional, or are we doing the integrated? And
that all makes sense.
We're pretty agnostic on that. Just the teachers need to decide what they want to do. The good news is, different from 10 years ago, there's actually course materials available now for integrated support, which for many years there hasn't been, and thus our high school teachers have created it all themselves.
If we do switch from integrated to subject matter, there are going to be juniors and seniors who are going to have to continue on.
That's right.
While the younger grades.
That's right.
Come in.
100% got it. Yeah.
Thanks.
I do just want to say one thing about the pilots. Open houses have been happening across the land, and there's been some parent concerns about, quote, the experiments that we're doing on kids when they're worried about the trajectory of coverage in math. I just want to reassure everyone that the standards are going to be covered. We are piloting the different materials that can get us there. So it's not like we're saying, just kidding, we're going to teach French instead of doing algebra, right? We are actually doing the same pieces, but trying out new approaches. And I just want to reassure everyone. And I also want to give our teachers grace on that, right? They are adapting and adopting new curriculum, and they are not the ones who can take the heat on that. If you want to call us, we will have any conversation that we need to, but the teachers are just trying to help us get there.
That's important.
Okay, any other comments?
Thank you.
All right, thank you
all
very much.
very much.
Thank you. Good job.
All right, let's move to our next discussion topic, the Rights and Responsibilities Handbooks, which we got last meeting.
And you do have a summary report of the track changes from both high schools for the handbook, and a really messy track changes for the actual handbook. And then I did an AI summary for you of all the changes, so you could read one document if you wanted.
And that was helpful. Thank you. Questions, comments?
The summaries were great. The track changes document, at least for me, was impossible to read.
Yep.
I am comfortable with the updates and would be willing to put forward a motion to approve them.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the Rights and Responsibilities Handbooks. Is there a second?
There is. Oh, you got it.
Okay, moved by Rajiv, second by Tamika. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, why don't we take a vote? Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2 is yes. Ward 3 is absent. Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7 absent. Ward 8 Worcester. Mayor Fuller.
Yes.
Okay. 7-0, the Rights and Responsibilities Handbooks are approved. So, thank you. Let's go to the fiscal operations update, and I suppose facilities update is
Companion. Mhm.
included within that.
And the CIP. It's a triple run.
Yeah, good evening again. Try to be brief. I'll go through fiscal and ops, and then Stephanie join me on facilities and CIP. So this is the FY25, just the year we ended June 30th this past year. We had been reporting quarterly to you folks, so happy to report ended at where we needed to be. So if you can recall the FY26 budget process, we needed to carry forward $3.350,000, and we were able to achieve that. We returned, and I apologize, Mayor, $5.50 to the city. I think that number's been going down, so I apologize. But that's
I'll bring it back to Treasury if you want to hand me the cash.
I don't apologize.
oh, geez. So that was to me, successful year. A little bit of a sweat at the end. We did get some good news from the state right 2 days before the fiscal year ended with circuit breaker transportation numbers. They reimbursed us an additional $520,000. They increased that transportation rate up to 75%. I think it was around 64%. I did just see some reimbursement numbers. They put out the preliminary numbers for FY26, and they look favorable for us. So I'll report that in the next school committee meeting, which is good news. So again, high level here, we hit our mark. We also do two additional things. We have what's called continued appropriations, which are some areas that we bring forward into the next year. They're under our control, and for some potential unanticipated items and for some potential anticipated items. One of the ones that we were also happy to hear about, and we had been reporting to you folks, we had received a grant during the fiscal year 25 that we then got notice that we needed to cease. It was called the AIR grant, a little more than $200,000, and we had been continuing to ask about funding. We received that funding in middle of August, so that was happy to get that. We've been carrying forward some money to help us with that expense. We did not have a revenue source for that expense, and I was counting that we were actually going to have to cover that out of our budget, but the money did come in. The process of closing is quite a process. Again, it actually takes the summer months thanks to my team, thanks also to many of the city departments in terms of closing that out. Just high level summary from my perspective, salaries were we had a number of savings in salary line items. We had a few areas where we had cost overruns, health insurance being one of them. Believe it or not, the 11% health rate increase does actually impact our FY25, our teachers' rates. Those July and August payments are actually hitting the FY25 piece. We also had a few plans over more than anticipated. I did talk a little bit during the year also about our precision staffing, our contracted services. That was a line item that was significantly over budget. We've come up with a plan with the HR department and kind of communicating out to our schools, making sure we try to keep that within budget. So I'll be reporting that and really closely monitoring that this year. One other piece I just would mention is just the out-of-district tuition. So we had a pretty significant overall increase in that. I think that's an impact of two things. One, we have total actually higher placements. That's both student placements and parent tuition reimbursements. And also think it's the compounding impact of that 14% rate increase that we received. So we did see an increase in FY25. Please note, though, that as I just mentioned, we did get for the FY25, we got a higher than anticipated FY reimbursement. So we just got that notice today. So that I'll be bringing again to you folks. So that's that reimbursement rate is based on our eligible expenses for both, for the most part. They call it instructional costs. For the most part, it's really our out-of-district tuition costs as well as transportation costs that we have for students. I touched a little bit about food services, grants. Thanks again, Amy Mistro on my team here working so much of that. And then Newton Community Education. We have a chart here. Again, there's work to do. They made significant reductions in their staffing. Kate Carpenter continues to impress and work incredibly hard and be creative. But the trend the last couple of years, they had been losing $398,000 3 years in a row. Their balance was dwindling. I was very concerned. They posted a modest surplus this year and have a carry forward balance of more than $100,000. So they're on the right track. We're going to continue to work with them. Kate knows how closely we're watching and we're very much in close contact, and she's still looking at any revenue generating ideas that she can come up with. So that is really the fiscal and ops report. Happy to take any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Liam. Questions from members?
Yes.
It's more than I wanted, but
Actually, can I just comment on this? Sorry to jump in, Chris. I just want everybody to understand the school department is by far our largest department. By balancing the books exactly, which $505.50 is, it means that the Newton Public Schools do not contribute to what is known as free cash. Free cash is generated by every other department and operation in the city. And under before the Fuller administration, free cash was never used to support the Newton Public Schools. I did change that in my years, happily so. But please know, it's really different from every other department and does mean that NPS has to really work within their own budget more and more and more without contributing to free cash and getting free cash. It's just tricky. NPS has all, this is traditional, by the way. This is not a change under Superintendent Nolan or our Assistant Superintendent Hurley. NPS essentially has never returned money to the cities, but it is just so different from every other department that it is notable. And I thank you for the $5.50. And next year you might have it down to $1.09. I'm giving you a goal to reach for.
One just clarifying question, Liam. The 8.017 of for year 25 circuit breaker on page 5. That includes the $520,000 of increased reimbursement, correct? That $520,000 is in the 8.017, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So had we not gotten that, we would have been short on our 3.35 of goal of.
So had we not received that, we still would have had the 3,350,000, but instead of the continued appropriations of approximately $900,000, that would have been 520,000 less than that. So I would have only been able to kind of have this out of district tuition, basically continued appropriation. So those other areas, which has been just a small cushion for us.
So it would have funged into the continued
It would have
appropriation.
fudged, so we still would have hit that
Understood.
And amplify that as the days got closer and closer to the very final fiscal year. Liam Hurley was in very close touch with Steve Curley.
That's right.
There were additional monies over the 3.35, and they got swept into continued appropriations in the last 48 hours.
So, and that amount would have been a whopping $377,000 for the whole district had we not received the 520,000. So I just want to say, while the mayor is worried that we're not contributing to free cash, I feel that is razor thin 377. That makes me sweat. That is our marginal, like the distance between balancing and not in an organization that of this magnitude. So this is why Mr. Hurley is so thin. He's stressed about it too.
Yeah, and plus, I think Dr. Nolan added to that. It was 337, and then I was anticipating throughout the whole summer that I did not think we were actually going to get air grant funding. So I was assuming that we were actually going to have to cover that. So this was, I know we needed to cover the 3,350. That was the goal the whole time. So I needed to ensure that we got that.
Well,
We ended up.
and I just want to say we didn't hire, we didn't spend, we didn't purchase to ensure that we hit that target. So it means that we didn't go forward with the things that we had budgeted for.
Okay, other questions? Okay, great. Do you want to move to facilities?
Sure thing. I have Stephanie come and join me on this one. So not too many thank yous, but our facilities team here, custodial staff, public buildings department, it takes a huge effort for the amount of facility work that is going on. There's a lot of information. I think you folks are really staying in tune. I feel like every other week we've got maybe a groundbreaking or shoveling dirt or a topping off ceremony, which is fantastic. So a lot of the major projects I think most of you folks are aware of. We did have 2 major building moves this past summer. Very successful, a lot of work get into that. And again, I'm sorry, Steve, you're listening as well, the IT department. They're working incredibly hard to make this all happen. Horace Mann moving into 191 Pearl, Lincoln Elliott moving into 150 Jackson. And we're obviously getting ready for Countryside and Franklin in 2027 to move into those pieces. So those are the major building projects. In addition to those major building projects, we've listed all the number of summer projects that we've got going on here. We do have a significant amount of one-time funding that we continue to highlight again from the city that is outside our school budget. We're going to talk shortly about the CIP plan. I think a few other areas that I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to have Stephanie jump in here. Just some other kind of important things. The MSBA, we are going to have a survey. They actually were out, and Stephanie and David Stickney felt like it was a long time walking
2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks walking through buildings. So we actually are eventually going to get a something back from them with kind of a report that they've collected, and it was a lot of data that they were collecting that. So that'll be helpful. We continue, and again, with the city, continue with our solar projects. We certainly have got the solar canopy here at the Ed Center, at the Wheeler Road at Brown and Oak Hill. We've got a very large canopy that was also erected this summer. the city is helping us move forward with a number of electric vehicle charging stations. Recycling and waste collection in our school kitchens has been something that we've been talking about for a long time and moving forward with. Stephanie just let me know about an LED project here at the Ed Center. I can tell you possibly once a week, the superintendent does ask me about usage of lights and how we can save money. So that is something that is real that she continues to ask me about and how we can save. So Dr. Nolan, we're getting LED lighting here and it's going to save us some money. So I'm happy to report
Not enough, Liam.
that. Number of, yep, go ahead.
And that comes through the Energy Stabilization Fund is going to help fund that, so.
Which is fantastic. Stephanie, any other pieces here you'd want to just mention? Fields, there's some field projects.
Field projects moving along. I just wanted to also add on solar projects, the Lincoln Elliott rooftop solar project is about to get started. In fact, I think they just started the electrical work today, and they'll be loading the roof with solar panels and working on that over the next month or so.
At 150 Jackson.
At 150
Yep,
Jackson,
yep.
Exactly.
And Pierce is just starting.
And Pierce
right
as
now.
well. Yes, and Pierce as well. They just finished the roof and now they're loading up the solar panels there as well. So that's moving. Lots of solar projects moving forward. There's a number of transportation updates that really come through Jen Martin in the planning department, transportation planner. We work very closely with DPW, engineering, and the planning department on all of those projects. Lots of them related to near schools, improvements near schools, a number of RFBs, rapid flashing.
Rapid rectangular
Always
flashing beacons.
Right. So there's a number that we're getting, I think, up to 24 locations that just came through due to grant projects that the city applied for. So a number of those will be located near schools. And then, of course, the Washington Street project, which is ongoing, and they're handing out donuts, I guess, on Wednesday mornings, trying to encourage students to use the routes, students and others. And then Blue Bike Station. So there's a lot of work going on. A lot of work.
I just mentioned some of the fields set over at Burr School, big field project there. And then Albemarle, I'm excited to play potentially some pickleball at some point there. So that facility is going to have a great turf field. It's obviously got a beautiful pool, new pool there. And so that project is still ongoing. The turf is actually down there. And the project is very interesting. When I first saw, they had dug a giant hole, and I just could not believe that they needed this hole for the turf field. But that hole is actually a storm retention for Cheesecake Brook. So that was news to me, and I just couldn't understand why they needed to go down so far. That how could we need this? So
We got questions whether we were building a third pool
I believe-
there
I
because there was such a big hole.
such a big hole. So that was fantastic. So that's the facilities update for you folks. Happy to answer your questions.
Any questions? Tamika, then Rajiv.
Question for you about the Brown staff parking. Actually, I don't know that it's just staff, but the parking lot at Brown. That project's on hold. Do we have an update as to when it might resume, and part B, when it's scheduled for completion?
Talking about the lot behind the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they put down, I think they put down some crushed stone to level off the areas that were pitted. It was, I think, the amount of funding that was attributed and what was desired to happen there needed probably more funding. So I think that scope's kind of on hold until we understand more.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can try and get a more definitive update on that as well. I think that there was some plan work there, and I think that the scope of work and potentially some of the stormwater drain may have pushed that budget beyond. But let me try and get a more definitive answer on what's happened there. We've done some work. It was kind of a series of a mud pit area. I think that's been leveled, and some, as Stephanie said, some earth and stones have been put down. But I don't think it's not a permanent parking situation. Do think some of our vans that go back there, they created kind of a better pull out and turn in for them as well, though. So let me follow up with that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Rajiv?
So I think this falls into this section and maybe not the CIP, but are there any updates on the Williams Playground? Because we discussed this in the last school committee meeting before the summer. But in terms of the accessibility there, and I know it was kind of a joint effort between us, Parks and Rec, and I think the city more generally. But has anything happened there? No.
There's been no other, I mean, so there was an effort to do, and I'm just going on memory here, to basically bring, there was swings, accessible swings that were installed. I believe that there was also some paths created to the play spaces, but there's not that kind of rubberized surface installed around the playground. There is kind of some of the, I'm going to call them the kind of matting put down at some of the end, kind of the wood chips. But in terms of full scale, full on renovation of that playground, that has not been done. I believe also some handicap benches or picnic tables were added as well. So there was maybe 3 to 5 smaller items trying to gain accessibility to that, but there was not nothing really major beyond that. I don't know if the mayor has any other update beyond that, but I could also follow up and get if there's been any other pieces. I think there's a portable basketball net that was put up as well to be taken down, but no.
Right, and I think the challenge continues to be that we have a special ed program there with students who need accessible playground that goes well beyond the fairly low standard set by the ADA. Yeah. And the Lincoln Elliott playground is a fantastic example. Obviously, every time I drive by, I'm like, I wish all our playgrounds could be like this. And obviously, it was thoughtfully designed and expensive, but is tremendously inclusive. So our students in one of the programs at Williams still face this challenge where a number of them just simply cannot access the playground during recess. So I don't know if that
I'm trying to
change at any point.
So we did go out, and I can't remember the timing. We did go out and meet on site after after all of this work was done, and there were some concerns about the surface, and there were a few other items that Parks was going to follow up on, and I would go back. I'll have to go back and talk to them about whether those few other things they were going to work on. One was the path, connecting the path and removing one of the ties so that the path connected in one area.
Yeah, and any updates, Stephanie, would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, let's move to the CIP then.
Stephanie, I'm going to have you take
Okay.
first shot there.
So every year the CIP is updated usually in October, and then again with the supplemental CIP in the spring, April, May timeframe. We always periodically throughout the year have meetings with the city. We also met with the CIP committee in, I think it was early September. Talked through kind of where the CIP was at the supplemental plan, walk through each of the pieces, and then also have discussions internally about where our priorities are based on whether it's programmatic needs or facility needs, condition needs. So we've sent the list that was attached in the CIP memo. We've walked through it with the CIP committee, the executive office, and have recommended this as our sort of request of projects. It's now needs to get feathered into the rest of the city's CIP. So that we will, the final city CIP, which gets presented on October 6th. I'm not sure exactly when we'll get that. Usually it's a little bit ahead of that. So this is kind of, it's sort of an interesting process because we're saying this is what we've reviewed and what our priorities are, but then once it gets feathered into the city plan, it comes back to us. So we'll be back to you on October 6th with the follow-up and with that final plan that comes from the city.
Okay, Paul, go ahead.
I have no problem with what you presented. I just raised the same procedural problem I think I raised last year, which is we have no authority over what goes into the CIP. I appreciate that it's essentially a staff level consultation that goes back and forth. I personally don't feel I have a way of making a judgment over these many, many items in terms of what should be the priorities. To me, that should be delegated to the superintendent and her staff. And I don't see why we vote on it.
Rajiv?
Not related.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'd love to hear if you have any details on item 22, which is the Vocational Training Center for Community Connections.
So Dr. Nolan, I don't know if you want to take that. This is Vocational Training Center for Community Connections. I know, some thinking
Yep.
about some grant opportunities as well out there.
So we have some exciting plans in the offing to create a storefront for vocational training for those students. I can't say more yet because we haven't signed the deal. But what it means is students get real on-the-job training in not here in the Ed Center or at North, but in an actual storefront with support. So we're working on it. I'm trying to get it for free. Yeah.
I think the other piece, Dr. Nolan, is just the idea of potentially thinking about a large grant.
Oh, you mean for CTE?
Yes.
So different from Vocational Training Center for our 18 to 22-year-old program. And also, we're trying to consider if we don't get those free spaces, like, can we use 181 Pearl in some way? Because it is on an MBTA bus line where students could use that as an opportunity. So we're trying to think of all those things and use our space as well. Haven't had those conversations at all, but we put it on the CIP because it's something that should these other plans not move forward, we aspire for those students to have the best possible program. Under CTE, we are seeking to vie for some program expansion grants. We had tried last year and they were cut from the budget. Here, the FTEs required. So there's a capital improvement grant that allows us to expand existing spaces for that. There's a science labs grant. There's also a shop expansion. So we are again putting forward the dental assisting, medical assisting, and the information systems technology scenarios. If the district puts up the equivalent of 1.4 FTE, we then can vie for millions of dollars of the capital skills grant, which allows us to purchase the equipment. So we're it's like packing a snowball. We're going to do the equipment, the people, and the spaces all at once, and we'll just keep applying until we get what we need.
Quick response on that, because you had sent an email probably 2 weeks ago at this point, asking about support letters that come in for that. Been racking my brains until today. The Charles River Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
So if we contact Greg Reedman, many of the local businesses are members of the chamber, including dental practices and other groups. Greg may be able to help us with getting those letters of support from local kind of community businesses. And you probably met Greg. If not, I think a number of us can help facilitate that.
And just for the public, if you are one of those small business owners who's in the dental profession, the information systems technology profession, or medical assisting, we are looking for industry support letters. We have the letters. We'll write them if you'll consider signing them, and you can certainly amend them with your ideas of support. But we do need those letters in order to submit for, I think it's November 1st is our deadline, but we'll need them by the middle of October.
Tamika?
So Paul, you asked the question, and I'll give you my perspective, purely my perspective on why it's important for the school committee to vote on the CIP. I think it's important for the committee to have some say into deciding what our priorities as a school district are. And I grant you are 100% correct. We, those of us on this committee, aren't necessarily the folks who are best positioned to know which boiler, which electrical system, which you guys tell us that, but it's important for us to sanction these needs. And I remember not too long ago, during last year's budget process, this became a point of debate as to which of the items that the mayor, at the mayor's discretion, could pull from the CIP to say, we have the funds to move forward on these. I think there is strength in having this tacit agreement that these are the priorities we're putting forth every year, and they get refreshed and revised periodically. So that's just my perspective on why it's important.
Thank you. Emily?
Ditto.
Succinct.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so we'll bring that back at our next meeting, and we can vote at it, much to Paul's dismay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we have to do a little housekeeping, bringing to open meeting some of the things that we voted on in our executive session from September 8th. There's three separate items there. Do you want me to go first with the?
Sure. Yep.
So on a vote to open collective bargaining discussions with the NTA, Dr. Nolan and I had met with NTA leadership several times towards the end of the summer to discuss the potential of opening discussions for a new contract that is earlier than we typically engage in that discussion. However, the last several cycles of this have taken a couple years to get done. It's difficult to say exactly where this will lead to in the short term, but we propose to the committee that we would authorize the negotiating subcommittee to begin those discussions. So I think we have to recreate that vote for open session.
That's right.
So, Paul?
I'm sorry. You haven't made a motion yet, so wait.
I have not yet made a motion,
I'll
but
wait.
okay. Okay, I will make a motion then. I move we authorize the negotiating subcommittee to begin discussions with the NTA.
For collective bargaining purposes.
For collective bargaining. I don't think that was in the language of the exact motion, but I don't think that's going to matter.
Yeah, are we able to recreate it without Anping and Alicia present?
I
think we may have to defer.
We can't recreate that without, I mean, it's the committee passing it. The committee
Yeah, I've never had
Yeah,
it
that's a
go this way.
chill.
It would be an imbalance if the vote holds true.
Okay. So should we?
We can certainly wait.
Yeah, we'll table this agenda item until we have the folks that were present at the executive session to do our open meeting duties.
So then for the second item, we'll do the same, but I just want to reassure my non-aligned colleagues that this is not a retreat from the vote that was made in executive
Second
session.
one's different.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Can
It's
I
not
just
different.
make a
It's
point
exactly the
I think,
same.
yeah.
in the first one? If I
Different
may?
tally.
I understand
Go
that,
ahead,
but
Paul.
they're not,
What's-
so not here.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, but
but
that
with
doesn't
the-
matter.
Paul, you
Yeah.
have the floor.
Okay, just on the first one, I was going to make a proposed amendment to the motion that I thought you were going to make, and I just want to mention it today for your consideration for when you bring it back, which we didn't discuss at the exec, which is that I would hope that we would regularly inform the two mayoral candidates, and after November 4th, the mayor-elect about the status of the negotiations as they proceed over the next few months, recognizing that this is an unusual situation where someone new is going to take office as mayor just within a couple months. It seems to me to be both prudent and polite and respectful to keep those folks informed of the status of the negotiations as they go along. So that's my request for you to think about.
Okay. Well, I agree that would be prudent and polite.
Anyway, we can't vote on that today.
The outside of Robert's rules right now, but that's fine.
Well, we're not, because the item hasn't been formally tabled either. So
It's fine.
anyway.
We're discussing an agenda item that is,
Sure.
so I think it's fine.
But Chris, I'm happy to make a motion on the non-aligned.
Well, I believe if we're going to table the first one, we should table the remainder, as that all applies to the same groups of folks who were in executive session to vote on all of those things.
I think
I would agree with you if the practical effect were different, but I think the practical effect on the other two items is that they are likely to pass.
correct. There is less.
Let's just
Question.
wait. I'll bring you a legal opinion
Whatever you
on
like.
all the things.
Yeah,
that
I
you
don't
mentioned.
think it's going to hurt anything to just, let's do them all at once, and we'll do our full recreation of executive session all at once. I think that will be prudent and polite.
Procedural question.
Yes, Rajiv.
So when we say recreate it, does it essentially mean kind of bringing up the motion, voting exactly as you voted previously, etc.? Just
Mhm,
doing that in open session?
correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
However, if so moved, you needn't vote the exact same way.
Right.
And that's a precedent as well.
I believe that is correct. Yes, that it is a real vote, so to speak.
Which is why I would not beating the dead horse, though I'm beating the dead horse. The second matter is ripe for a vote tonight.
We're gonna just table them all. Okay, let's keep it simple. And it's
Great.
okay. We will move on to our last agenda item. And just in case there's any confusion before I move on, actually, we are required to have open votes of certain items that we vote in executive session to in a public open meeting. So that's the process we're going through. Two of our members who were present at this executive session are not present tonight. That is why we're tabling till everyone is present who was there. With that, Superintendent Goals.
So you have had for a couple of weeks the goals that I have chosen for my professional practice goals. I also recapped the areas in the superintendent state rubric for assessing superintendent performance that you used last year, and suggested some places for my work this year. So I crosswalked my goals to the current strategic plans, so you could see what my method was for choosing these and why I chose them. And I would request your support for these goals, but happy to have feedback if you think I'm moving in a direction that is not enhancing the work of the district, or you'd like to see me work on something else based on my past evaluation.
Okay.
I think they're great.
I mean, I think that probably stands as an open invitation for
This is your first.
engaging with
meet-
Dr. Nolan
Yep.
on a one-on-one basis on any of these. We can certainly bring it up in well, we do it multiple times, bring up your goals throughout the year in open session. So not concerned about
And
the.
just for the public's consumption, I'm student learning goal. I have aligned my goals with Dr. Flanagan and Ms. Shore around the implementation of the math pathways. It's a huge program change. So I have put my own goals on it, and just ensuring that we stay as professionally current as possible. I'm exploring all the ways the use of AI in our leadership work with our teachers So sort of different than some of the work that's being done with students. What are those practices and studies that we need to be doing with our teachers? So I am studying AI myself in various ways.
Mika?
So question on AI.
Mhm.
Why that particular one rises to the fore for the next 2 years for you? I just want to hear it articulated.
So one of the, I've always had an interest in seeding the next generation of innovative tools that extend the reach of teachers. So I've kept close contacts with folks that used to run a conference in Boston called the Learn Launch Conference. That was ed tech entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and superintendents, and they would put us in a room together for 2 days, and they would say, "What are the problems that you think ed tech needs to solve in the future?" And then they would come back and pitch us ideas, kind of like a Shark Tank kind of scenario. I've kept those contacts up, and of late, particularly around curriculum deployment, there are some new technologies that use AI that save days and days and days of time in a place that I think our teachers in particular, because they have been so exhausted by their curriculum writing endeavors in the last 10 years, I think they're compelling for us. I started to see the new technologies, and I want us to be on the cutting edge of that. I think it's going to accelerate what we're able to do with curriculum deployments.
Thank you. I suspected as much, but I think it's important to say that.
I was actually very pleased to see AI on the list because there's tremendous potential. It's still the Wild West. In tandem with trying to figure out how to appropriately incorporate it into teaching, the benefits for educators and administrators are still somewhat unknown, and will be for some time.
Yeah.
It's great to see that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay.
All right.
That concludes our agenda for this evening, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Look at us. It's 9 o'clock.
Or it was going to be 9:30.